Hey guys, today we begin with something faint, a whisper that crossed the void between worlds. High above the rust-colored surface of Mars, silent orbiters trace thin lines through the planet's twilight sky. They've been circling for years, collecting dust, numbers, and whispers of light. But recently, their instruments began to sing a different tune. Tiny fluctuations in the infrared spectrum. A shimmer where there shouldn't be one. Something delicate and fleeting. The spectral fingerprint of water vapor. You picture it now. A red planet wrapped in cold air. The sun dipping low behind a thin horizon. From space, Mars glows like a dying ember. And yet, above that fragile world, something new has appeared. Or perhaps something ancient has returned. The timing feels uncanny. Just as the interstellar traveler 3I ATLAS draws close to the Martian orbit, the machines circling the planet start picking up signs of moisture, not enough to fill a glass, not even enough to form a cloud, but enough to make scientists sit up and whisper back. Imagine being there in the cabin of the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, your body weightless, your breath fogging the glass as you stare down at the ochre plains. The planet below is silent, scarred by the ghosts of rivers long gone. Yet through the sensors, you see something almost tender, faint waves of light suggesting water molecules drifting in the upper atmosphere. Not much, but real. You feel the quiet excitement that comes when the universe chooses to reveal itself in small, patient gestures to the engineers on Earth. It started as noise, background interference, cosmic dust, solar reflection, but night after night the pattern persisted. Each orbit confirmed the same spectral lines. The data whispered, "There's water here. Not on the ground, not in ice, in the air." It's strange to think of water dancing above Mars. It shouldn't last long. The sun's ultraviolet light tears those molecules apart in seconds. Yet for that brief instant, they exist, shimmering, evaporating, reforming, as if the planet itself were exhaling a memory. Some believe that, as 3IATLAS sweeps closer, its dust tail might be stirring the thin Martian air, injecting charged particles that awaken hidden reservoirs of frost. Others think it's coincidence, the rhythm of seasonal warming. Either way, the story begins here, with a whisper no louder than light. Wherever you are, let the world slow down for a while. Soften your gaze, let the hum of life around you fade, and gently drift with us into tonight's quiet exploration. The visitor between worlds. That's what astronomers call it. 3I ATLAS is not bound by the sun's gravity. It is not a comet in the ordinary sense, though it wears the same shining veil. It came from the vast gulf beyond the Oort cloud. Perhaps even farther, a cold, dark ocean of interstellar space that our telescopes can barely glimpse. Its name, 3I, means the third confirmed interstellar object ever recorded by humankind. Atlas is for the survey telescope that first noticed it, a faint streak moving against the stars in a pattern that defied the pull of our star. You imagine it now, a grain of ice and rock, perhaps a few hundred meters wide, tumbling silently through the void for billions of years. Its surface is ancient, scarred by radiation and micrometeorites, but beneath the crust may lie frozen gases older than our solar system itself. When sunlight touches it, those ices awaken. They hiss and evaporate, forming a shimmering tail that stretches for millions of kilometers, a banner announcing its arrival from the perspective of Mars. 3I ATLAS appears as a slow-moving emerald arc across the black sky, It doesn't orbit the sun like other comets. It cuts through the solar system at a steep angle, an intruder from another neighborhood of the galaxy. Some astronomers describe it as a message in motion, a relic of a time when the Milky Way's young stars were still forming planets. Its velocity, more than 70 kilometers per second relative to the sun, means no gravitational tether can bring it back. It is merely passing through, indifferent and eternal. You can almost hear it, a cold rush of particles, a hiss of ionized dust. As it nears the orbit of Mars, that dust begins to intersect the planet's thin atmosphere. Microscopic fragments, carbon silicates, frozen water collide with the air, burn for a heartbeat, and vanish. Yet each impact leaves behind traces, charged ions, molecular seeds that could influence the chemistry of the Martian sky. Down on Earth, observatories in Chile and Hawaii adjust their optics, tracking the intruder's trajectory. Radio dishes hum softly as they collect signals bouncing off its tail. Scientists debate whether this visitor is unique or simply one of countless travelers we've never noticed before. But deep in their data logs, some find patterns, subtle alignments between Mars' atmospheric readings and the comet's approach. It's as if the two bodies are briefly speaking across the void, exchanging something ancient, something vital. You drift now between them, Mars behind you, glowing rust red, and 3I Atlas ahead, a green flame slicing through space. Between these worlds hangs a bridge of dust and water, fragile yet full of wonder. The visitor between worlds continues on, unaware of our curiosity, unaware of the whispers it has stirred. A memory of water, that's what the scientists called it in their reports, because what they found wasn't a river, or an underground reservoir, or even frost upon the rocks. It was something much more delicate, faint traces of vapor shimmering in the thin Martian air, like a ghost remembering what it once was. You float with the orbiters now, their solar panels catching the faint sunlight, their cameras staring downward at the red expanse below. The instruments don't see water the way our eyes do. They read wavelengths, vibrations, the subtle ways molecules twist and sing when touched by light. In those songs, buried beneath layers of dust and data, is the unmistakable signature of HO. On Mars, water is not gone, just exiled. It hides as ice beneath the poles, locked away for eons, or trapped within minerals scattered across the deserts. But every so often, the atmosphere warms just enough, and the ice whispers upward, molecule by molecule, into the sky. It's a fragile equilibrium, constantly undone by the sun's ultraviolet glare. Still, the readings that came from Maven and Trace Gas Orbiter told the same story. Something had changed. There was more vapor than expected. Not much, but statistically impossible to ignore. Could 3I Atlas be the reason? Its approach coincided too neatly with the increase. As it drew near, the comet's tail released a mist of volatile compounds, water, ammonia, carbon monoxide, that could mingle with Mars' upper atmosphere. Some researchers proposed that tiny ice grains from the comet's dust stream were disintegrating as they fell, seeding the planet with trace moisture. Others cautioned against romantic speculation. Correlation, they said, is not causation. Yet even the skeptics admitted the timing was haunting. Imagine standing on the Martian surface, your boots sinking into crimson dust. The sky above is pale but tinted green tonight, faint, almost imperceptible, like the afterglow of northern lights on Earth. You raise your visor, and for a moment your sensors catch a fluctuation, humidity rising by a fraction of a percent. It's not much, but it's real. The air carries something alive, something moving, as if the planet were taking a shallow breath after millennia of silence. The thought sends a ripple through the scientific community back home. What if interstellar visitors, like 3I-ATLAS, are not just wanderers, but messengers, carriers of the essential ingredients of life, scattering them from star to star? The theory isn't new. It's called panspermia, the idea that comets may ferry organic molecules or water across galaxies. But to witness it happening, even indirectly, would change how we see cosmic evolution itself. As you drift with this thought, you begin to understand why astronomers spend decades chasing tiny blips of light. Each photon holds a story billions of years old. Each spectrum is a memory of water, whispered through time. Mars, once drenched in rivers and lakes, now mirrors that memory in the faintest breath of vapor, and perhaps in the shimmering tale of a visitor born among other suns. Echoes in the dust, that's what the latest readings called them. Invisible ripples moving through the Martian sky, triggered by something beyond the planet itself. When scientists visualized the data, it looked almost like sound waves frozen in sand, arcs of faint ionization spreading outward across the thin atmosphere. These weren't weather patterns, nor solar flares. They were quieter, stranger, synchronized with the passing shadow of 3I Atlas from orbit. You see it, the red planet beneath, half lit by dawn, half swallowed by night. Around its northern hemisphere, a misty glow shimmers faintly green, like the aurora borealis reflected through dust. The light isn't uniform, it pulses, dances, then fades again, as if the planet were responding to a whisper from deep space, scientists on Earth. Compared the data from MAVEN and the European Trace Gas Orbiter. Both had captured the same anomaly. Microscopic dust grains entering the atmosphere at extreme speed, their origin tracing back to the trajectory of 3I-ATLAS. When these grains burned up, they left behind fleeting streaks of plasma, too weak to see with the naked eye, but bright enough in ultraviolet, each one a silent echo in the Martian dusk. You imagine the sound it would make if space could carry it, a soft hiss like static in an old radio. Every grain that falls through the air leaves a trace of charged ions, an invisible glow that dances for seconds before disappearing. The result is a halo, a gossamer ring encircling Mars, faint but real, an atmospheric aurora, born not of magnetism but of cosmic debris. It's humbling to think how fragile this dance is. Mars has no global magnetic field, no thick atmosphere to shield it. Every interaction with the solar wind is raw, unfiltered. Yet in this vulnerability lies beauty. The dust from an interstellar traveler has found a stage upon which to perform the quiet canvas of a dying world down on the surface. The rovers sleep through it all, their cameras blind to the spectacle overhead. Only orbiters can witness the phenomenon, their sensors tuned to frequencies humans can't perceive. One image, color-enhanced for clarity, shows a sweeping green veil above the planet's limb. It isn't rain, or cloud, or aurora. It's the soft glow of molecules colliding in patterns older than life itself. Somewhere in those collisions, trace elements appear: hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, the universal alphabet of existence. Scientists note the timing again, precisely when 3I-ATLAS reached its closest approach to Mars. The echoes grew stronger. Coincidence? Maybe, but cosmic coincidences often hide deeper truths. You drift now among the dust, watching particles shimmer and vanish, like tiny stars falling upward. The echoes ripple through silence, soft, persistent, eternal. Mars listens, and, in its own way, answers back. The pulse of a dying planet. That's how one scientist described the strange rhythm appearing in Mars' thermal readings. Every few hours, surface temperatures seemed to shift in a subtle wave. A pattern that shouldn't exist in a place where the air is too thin to carry heat efficiently. Yet the orbiter's instruments detected it again and again, a slow, pulsing beat, as if the planet itself were breathing in response to 3i, Atlas gliding past. From high above, Mars doesn't look alive. It's a world of rust and stone, frozen volcanoes and dry riverbeds, carved by forgotten floods. But now, something delicate stirs in its skin. The thermal cameras of the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter pick up faint warmth blooming across crater rims and polar plains, then fading again into cold silence. It's not geothermal. There are no active volcanoes. It's not sunlight, either. The cycle doesn't match the Martian day. Instead, it follows the comet's approach, echoing its path through the night sky. Some researchers propose that charged particles from 3i Atlas tail might be interacting with the upper atmosphere, creating temporary pockets of ionized energy that trickle down through the thin air. These interactions could momentarily warm the surface, melting trace amounts of subsurface frost, releasing molecules of water vapor, just enough to register as a pulse of heat. If that's true, then Mars is responding, however faintly, to the visitor from beyond. Picture it now, a landscape of crimson dunes, silent for eons, beginning to exhale as sunlight refracts through a veil of cometary dust. Ice crystals, hidden beneath the sand, catch the warmth and sublimate into gas. They drift upward, twisting like threads of silk. For a moment, the planet's heartbeat quickens. Then the cold reclaims everything. On Earth, such minute variations might mean nothing, a statistical quirk. But on Mars, where every gram of atmosphere counts, a fluctuation of 0.5 degree is monumental. Scientists compare notes across continents, NASA's thermal infrared data, ESA's energy flux readings, the Indian MUM probe's atmospheric density reports. All revealed the same syncopation, the pulse peaks, just as 3i Atlas crosses the planet's orbital plane. It's not proof, but it's poetry written in numbers, and it reminds us that planets, too, can have rhythms, not of life as we know it, but of chemistry, energy, and light. As you drift closer to the surface in your mind's eye, you can almost hear it, a low hum resonating beneath the dust, like the echo of ancient seas. Perhaps it's only imagination, or perhaps Mars remembers. The planet that once roared with rivers and storms now whispers in pulses of warmth and vapor, stirred awake by a traveler from another star. The pulse fades, but the impression remains a world that once lived, and maybe, for a heartbeat, still does instruments that listen. That's what they've become. Silent sentinels orbiting a silent world, tuned not to sound but to light, radiation, and the faint tremor of particles brushing past their sensors. On Earth, sound needs air to travel. In space, everything speaks through frequency. To listen here is to translate the invisible, to hear in photons what cannot be heard in noise. You drift beside one of them now, the Maven spacecraft, its body glinting bronze beneath the dim sun. Its antennas extend like insect limbs, scanning the thin Martian atmosphere for whispers of plasma. Each rotation brings a new layer of data: solar wind intensity, electron density, magnetic fluctuations, and somewhere among that digital chorus, hides the song of three. Atlas does. The spacecraft doesn't know beauty, but its instruments create it anyway. Each packet of data, when decoded into color, becomes a moving tapestry: violet bands for ultraviolet, amber for thermal emission, teal for ionized oxygen. The patterns flicker, repeat, and shimmer, tracing the path of something unseen. When the comet's charged tail brushed the upper layers of Mars' sky, those colors surged a gentle crescendo in the planet's otherwise monotonous rhythm below. The trace gas orbiter from ESA listens differently. It hunts for chemical clues: hydrogen peroxide, methane, ozone, and now a faint, stubborn spike of water vapor. Its laser spectrometer measures sunlight filtered through the Martian air, revealing molecules by the way they absorb certain wavelengths. Day after day, it logs the same anomaly: the molecular fingerprint of water fluctuating in sync with the interstellar comet's approach. Coincidence or conversation? Every reading comes back to Earth as a pulse of radio waves, taking more than 14 minutes to cross the void. In that time, Mars continues to turn, the comet continues to glide, and the universe remains silent. Yet through these machines, silence becomes speech. You imagine the control room in Pasadena, lit only by the blue glow of monitors. Engineers sit quietly, their eyes tracing graphs that rise and fall like gentle tides. There's no fanfare, no breaking news, just a shared stillness, the recognition that they are witnessing something extraordinary. Somewhere between a dying planet and an ancient traveler, a dialogue has begun, carried on frequencies too delicate for human ears. The orbiters don't need words. They listen through energy, through the language of change. The Maven reads the magnetic fields flexing. The TGO deciphers the breath of gases. Together, they compose a symphony of invisible motion, a scientific lullaby humming across the solar system. And you, floating here, begin to sense what they do. That space is never truly silent. Every atom vibrates, every photon whispers, every planet hums its own faint melody into eternity. Mars, for all its stillness, is singing tonight, and the instruments, ever faithful, are listening. When data becomes art, that's where science begins to feel human again. The orbiters have gathered terabytes of numbers, wavelengths, coordinates, and times. But when the scientists translate those values into color, into light, into image, something magical happens. The cold precision of data turns into beauty, a visual echo of what Mars might feel. Not just what it measures. You're looking now at one of those composite images, built from layers of ultraviolet, infrared, and visible spectra collected by the trace gas orbiter. The scientists have tinted it in false color so our human eyes can understand it. In the picture, the planet is half in shadow, half in the gentle glow of sunrise. Across its upper atmosphere floats a faint blue haze, the spectral trace of water vapor. It's not dense, it's not visible to the naked eye. But there it is, a watercolor brushstroke across. A world that forgot what clouds look like. Somewhere in that gradient lies the whisper of 3I, ATLAS, its dust tail, rich with volatile ice and carbon compounds, has brushed past Mars, scattering invisible crystals that briefly catch the sun. In the false color render, these show as streaks of turquoise and emerald, curling like ribbons above the poles. It doesn't look like data anymore. It looks like music painted in light dot. In labs across the world, scientists stare at the same images on glowing screens. They don't just see Mars, they see movement, rhythm, structure. When they animate the sequences, thousands of frames taken over weeks, the patterns begin to breathe. Pulses of blue swell and fade, synchronized with the comet's path. The planet itself seems to respond, softly shimmering beneath a veil of cosmic dust. Some of these scientists admit privately that the first time they saw it, they felt something close to emotion. It was beautiful, one said. It looked like Mars was remembering water. It's easy to forget that every pixel of those images is born from silence. No sound, no color, just the mathematics of light. Yet in the hands of people searching for meaning, the data becomes a form of art, a portrait of longing. You picture it framed in a dark observatory, the red curve of Mars beneath a wash of spectral blue. 3-1 Atlas streaking faintly above like a ghostly comet painted by memory itself. As you drift deeper into thought, you realize that maybe the beauty of science isn't in the answers, but in the translation, in turning invisible truth into something our hearts can recognize. The orbiters record, the computers interpret, and we, the dreamers, give it meaning. On Mars, there are no artists, no poets, no eyes to see the color of vapor in the sky. But through us, through these mechanical listeners and the minds that read them, the universe paints itself into being, the interstellar trail, a bridge of dust and light stretching across the void. That's how astronomers describe the wake of 3I Atlas as it sweeps through the inner solar system. Unlike the familiar comets born from our own Oort cloud, this one is a stranger. Its orbit isn't an ellipse that will bring it back someday. It's a hyperbola, open-ended infinite. Once it leaves, it will never return. And yet, for a brief moment in cosmic time, its path threads across Mars' sky like a glowing seam between worlds. From the deck of an imaginary observatory orbiting Mars, you can see it. The sun sits low on the horizon, a tiny disk compared to how it looks from Earth above. The blackness of space seems sharper, its stars more defined, and then faint at first. You notice a filament of green light slicing through the darkness, the tail of 3I Atlas, shimmering with charged particles. It doesn't fall straight. It curves gracefully, bending under the combined pull of solar wind and interstellar momentum. Astronomers call this the interstellar trail, a faint ribbon of ionized gas extending millions of kilometers behind the comet. It glows because sunlight excites the molecules within it. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, ammonia, and traces of organic compounds. When these excited molecules relax, they release photons, mostly in shades of cyan and emerald. The result is a ghostly river of light, flowing silently through the dark dot as the comet passes near Mars' orbit. Its trail intersects with the planet's thin atmosphere. Most of the particles are too small to survive entry, but a few graze the upper layers, burning for a second before vanishing. Some scatter, forming a diffuse mist that faintly colors the Martian twilight. For those watching through the Maven's ultraviolet sensors, it's like watching the planet inhale a breath from another star. The geometry of it all is exquisite. Mars moving along its path, the comets slicing across at an angle, their trajectories crossing for only a few days. If you could trace their orbits in three-dimensional space, they'd look like two threads weaving briefly before parting forever. And yet, during that intersection, something is exchanged. Energy, dust, perhaps even the seeds of water on Earth. The images arrive as streams of raw numbers, later rendered into color maps, arcs of teal and amber swirling round Mars, like an artist's brushstroke, but the scientists studying them know what they're really seeing. The physical memory of a meeting between two travelers, one ancient, one wounded each, carrying fragments of the same cosmic story. In a sense, this trail is a message. Every grain of dust holds the signature of a place far beyond our solar cradle. Some of these particles might have formed near the edge of another galaxy, forged in a sun that died before Earth was born. Now they fall through the atmosphere of Mars, burning into atoms, blending with what remains of its air. You imagine standing beneath that sky, looking up at the green arc stretching horizon to horizon. The stars are silent, but everything feels connected, as if Mars and the comet were briefly remembering they were once made from the same dust. The interstellar trail fades slowly into the dark, but the idea of it lingers. A bridge across time, fragile yet infinite, light that talks. That's what physicists sometimes call the way photons reveal secrets. Every ray of light carries a message. Its wavelength tells you temperature. Its polarization hints at magnetic fields. Its spectrum whispers about chemistry. Tonight, that light is the thread connecting Mars, the Sun, and three IATLAS, 3 points in a silent conversation, written entirely in color. You hover just above the Martian limb, where night and day meet. From here, sunlight bends through the planet's thin air, scattering into layers of gold, rose, and faint green. High above, the comet glides past, its tail aglow with charged gas. When sunlight strikes it, photons scatter in every direction, each one slightly altered, polarized, diffused, refracted through alien dust. Some of that light travels downward and meets the red planet's atmosphere, faintly illuminating the clouds of fine dust suspended there. For the first time, Mars reflects light that has touched an interstellar object. The orbiter's sensors capture it all: spectra, angles, intensities. The MRO's imaging spectrometer detects narrow absorption lines where sunlight filtered through cometary vapor has kissed the Martian air. The MAV's magnetometer hums as waves of charged particles interact with the weak magnetail behind the planet. And deep within those signals, there's a strange coherence, a rhythm between the comet's tail and Mars' auroral emissions. To a scientist, this is conversation. Photon answering photon, energy answering energy. To you, it looks like poetry, light crossing light. To cosmic strangers, exchanging a quiet greeting. It's no coincidence that this alignment evokes memories of the great cosmic mirrors, how Earth's own auroras respond to solar storms, or how Venus' atmosphere glows faintly when the sun flares. But this is different. The particles striking Mars didn't come from its parent star. They came from the space between stars, born in a region where gravity is weaker, radiation harsher, and time slower. In a sense, this is the first light from another system ever to mingle with the air of a neighboring planet. The data comes back to Earth as jagged graphs, spikes of brightness, valleys of absorption. When plotted together, they form what one researcher calls the interstellar signature. It's as though Mars momentarily became a mirror for alien light. Imagine the view from the surface, perhaps, from the rim of Olympus, Mons, where the air is thinner than breath. The sky is black even at noon, yet tonight it glows faintly turquoise. You lift your eyes, and there it is, 3I, ATL, AS, tracing a slow arc above, its light bending in thin veils across the upper atmosphere. For a few hours, The planet shines in colors unseen since its ancient seas evaporated. The light flickers and fades, but in that flicker lies history, the story of photons that began their journey 1 billion years ago, only to end here, whispering against red dust, back on Earth. The graphs flatten, the light diminishes, and silence resumes, yet the message remains. The universe is not mute. It speaks constantly through light, through gravity, through dust, and all we need to do is listen differently. Tonight, Mars has spoken, and the listener is not only the orbiters but everyone who dares to imagine what light might be saying. Theories and disputes, that's the inevitable next step in any great discovery. Once the first whispers of water vapor and strange light patterns reached Earth, the scientific community divided neatly into 2 camps. Those who believed that 3I Atlas had influenced Mars, and those who called it coincidence, a trick of timing, a mirage in the data dot at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Analysts pore over terabytes of raw numbers, stripping away noise from cosmic rays and solar interference. They argue that seasonal warming, not the comet, is to blame for the water signal. Mars has cycles. Faint traces of vapor appear every Martian summer when polar frosts. To them, 3I Atlas merely arrived at the right place, at the right time, to be mistaken for cause instead of bystander. But others disagree. Over at ESA's Mission Control in Darmstadt, Germany, a team of atmospheric physicists cross-references MAVEN's plasma data with the traced gas orbiter's spectroscopy. The synchronization is too precise. They argue the spike in hydrogen and oxygen ions aligns perfectly with the comet's closest approach. Random fluctuations don't keep time with interstellar visitors. Asterisk, the debate grows, polite but passionate. Scientific journals fill with cautious phrases. Anomalous correlation, potential external modulation, pending confirmation. The cautious language of discovery. In private, however, a few admit their awe. If this is real, one writes, it's the first observable interaction between an extrasolar body and a planetary atmosphere in human history. You float among their thoughts, the sterile hum of data centers, the glow of monitor screens, the coffee cups forgotten beside laptops. The disagreement isn't division. It's devotion. Every argument, every doubt, is another way of paying attention. And then there are the dreamers, astrophysicists, who invoke the idea of panspermia again. They remind the world that comets are couriers. They carry the volatile molecules that build life, water, ammonia, methanol, simple organics. Perhaps, they say softly, Mars is catching what it once lost. It's a thrilling thought, that 3I Atlas, forged in a different star's nursery, could briefly enrich a barren planet, even in trace amounts. Maybe these collisions happen everywhere, tiny acts of replenishment scattered through the cosmos, weaving connections between worlds. Skeptics push back, armed with equations and probability models. They point out that the comet's tail density is infinitesimal compared to Mars' atmosphere. Even if every particle reached the surface, they say, the contribution would be less than a single snowflake in the Sahara. But maybe the numbers aren't the point. Maybe the wonder is science advances through argument, but imagination is what keeps it alive. Every discovery begins as doubt, and as the debate ripples across continents, the truth remains unchanged. Something happened around Mars, a brief shimmer, a measurable breath of water, just as an interstellar wanderer passed by. Coincidence? Causation? For now, no one knows. But the beauty of science is that it doesn't demand belief, only curiosity, outside the reach of equations. Mars spins quietly under its thin veil of air, while far beyond, 3180LAS continues on its path, indifferent to our theories, but forever altering the way we see the universe. Messages from the past, that's what the arbiters seem to be uncovering now. Not just data, but echoes of an older Mars speaking through new phenomena. Every time the spectrometers pick up a trace of vapor or a thermal pulse, it's as if the planet is remembering something. An ancient era when water wasn't a rumor but a reality. You drift back in thought, imagining Mars as it was billions of years ago. Rivers carved deltas across the plains of Jezero crater. Vast lakes shimmered under pale skies, and rain fell on stone that still bears the marks today. The rover's perseverance, curiosity, spirit, all found signs of that lost era. Sedimentary layers shaped by flowing water, minerals that form only in liquid conditions, and the ghostly outlines of one's living landscapes now, as 380LAS brushes past. The orbiters detect patterns that mirror those ancient chemical fingerprints. Hydrogen and oxygen ratios matching what might once have been ocean vapor. The data looks familiar, hauntingly so, as though the planet were replaying a fragment of its own history. Some scientists even suggest that the comet's approach may have triggered localized releases of buried ice, coaxing long dormant frost to evaporate once more in labs on Earth. Researchers overlay the new data atop archived rover readings. The curves align, the signatures rhyme. It's like déjà vu in spectroscopy, one says. We're seeing the same song, played in a different key. The idea spreads quietly through the community that Mars isn't dead, just dreaming. Its frozen ground still holds the memory of seas, its air still capable of brief awakenings. And perhaps, just perhaps 380LAS served as the faintest alarm clock in that planetary dream. You imagine walking along the rim of Gale, crater beneath a copper sky. The dust clings to your boots, and the silence feels infinite. But tonight, that silence is thinner. The sensors in your suit pick up a rise in humidity, tiny, almost meaningless, but enough to make you pause. The wind shifts, carrying a chill that feels alive. You realize that even a dead world can whisper if something stirs it. For centuries, humans have looked at Mars as a mirror, our hopes, our fears, our future. Now, with this encounter, it feels more like a conversation. A planet long silenced is answering, not in words, but in vapor, light, and dust. And in that whisper, scientists hear more than data. They hear continuity. The same water that once flowed through Martian valleys might now be mixing, atom by atom, with the dust of an interstellar visitor. The same elements that form comets, stars, and life itself. Mars may never bloom again, but its story isn't over. The traces of its past still find ways to surface, sometimes in the most unexpected moments, like now, when a wanderer from another sun passes close enough to remind it of what it once was. The thin breath of Mars, fragile, fleeting, yet alive in ways we're only beginning to understand. The atmosphere of the red planet is less than 1% as dense as Earth's. But within that tenuous veil exists a world of motion invisible to the eye. Here, air is a ghost, drifting carbon dioxide, argon, and a wisp of water vapor that dances on the edge of existence. You hover above the planet's limb, watching sunlight graze its horizon. The glow fades into layers of pale amber and violet, thin gradients marking altitude, temperature, and composition. Instruments aboard the Maven spacecraft measure these layers in exquisite detail. They find water molecules in the upper atmosphere, but only briefly. Within hours, ultraviolet radiation from the sun tears them apart. Hydrogen escapes into space, forever lost. Oxygen lingers, heavy and alone, falling back toward the ground where it may cling to dust or freeze into oxides. This is what scientists call photodissociation, the quiet disassembly of water by light. On Earth, magnetic protection and thick air shield our oceans from such loss. But Mars is bare, unguarded. Each molecule that rises is a sacrifice to the sky. And yet, even knowing that, the readings still show it, that soft breath, recurring night after night, as if the planet refuses to forget how to breathe. The data shows a pattern now. The pulses of water vapor coincide, with faint increases in atmospheric temperature, and both match the passing of 3 IATLAS. It's as though the comet's charged particles are stirring something deep within the atmosphere, lifting molecules from the surface only for the sun to tear them apart. A cycle of creation and loss, fleeting but beautiful. You picture this delicate process in motion, a grain of dust, warmed by sunlight, refracted through cometary haze, releases a droplet of sublimating ice. The droplet evaporates, rises a few kilometers, and becomes part of Mars' invisible breath. Seconds later, a photon shatters it, a cosmic sigh scattered into atoms. The process repeats endlessly, turning the upper air into a shimmering equilibrium between existence and erasure. Somewhere in this fragile dance lies meaning. Scientists call it escape flux, the slow bleeding of a planet into space. Philosophers might call it impermanence, a reminder that even worlds fade. And yet, paradoxically, that loss is also connection. The atoms of Mars' lost water drift outward, joining the solar wind, carried perhaps to the very comet that stirred them free. Imagine tracing one of those hydrogen atoms as it escapes. It leaves Mars, drifts through interplanetary space, and merges with the dust of 3I Atlas as it departs the solar system. In some distant epoch, that same atom might settle on another planet, in another star's light. The thin breath of Mars will go on, dispersed but eternal. In that realization, you sense a quiet grace. Mars is not simply losing itself. It is sharing. What it exhales becomes part of everything else, the faintest contribution to the endless exchange that defines the cosmos. And as you float here, listening to that nearly silent respiration, you understand that what we call emptiness is never truly empty. It is filled with the echoes of everything that ever was and still is. Between the stars and the silence, that's where meaning hides. Out here, there is no sound, no air, no movement that a human ear could recognize. And yet, in this silence, entire worlds are conversing. Mars breathes its thin sigh into space, and 3 IATLAS responds in kind, a shimmering dust trail that glows like thought itself. Between them stretches the unbroken quiet of infinity, vast and tender, where matter becomes memory and time forgets to count. You drift in that stillness, somewhere between both travelers. Behind you, Mars glows like an ember buried beneath sand, ancient, wounded, enduring. Ahead, 3 IATLAS blazes in green fire, carrying within it ices and minerals that predate the sun. One is dying. One is merely passing through, but both are made of the same cosmic dust. Their meeting isn't accident. It's recognition in the soft darkness. You remember what scientists say about comets, that they are the archives of creation, frozen time capsules preserving the chemistry of starbirth. To approach one is to glimpse the raw ingredients of worlds. Carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, the alphabet of existence. When those atoms fall upon Mars, they're not foreign intruders. They're fragments of an ancient kinship. Returning home, you imagine the moment of impact. A grain of interstellar ice, smaller than a grain of salt, colliding with the upper atmosphere. For an instant, it ignites, releasing energy and vapor that shimmer in the ultraviolet. The light lasts less than a heartbeat, yet in that heartbeat, matter from beyond our galaxy merges with the remnants of Martian air. It's chemistry and poetry combined, the physics of reunion, somewhere in the data logs. An atmospheric scientist writes a note. Transient hydrogen peak detected. Source undetermined. Another adds, coincides with comet's tail entry window. The notes are dry, cautious, professional, and yet behind them is wonder. The numbers might as well read. They met. The universe noticed it's easy, in moments like this, to see the cosmos not as a machine but as a story, one told slowly, beautifully, across billions of years. A dying planet and a wandering comet are both chapters of that same narrative, written in particles, light, and gravity. Mars may have lost its oceans, but in welcoming 3I, ATLAS, it touches again the primordial sea from which it once came. As you drift between them, you can almost feel the weight of silence pressing around you, not empty, but full, dense with meaning. The hum of creation still vibrates here, faint but constant. Everything is in motion, everything connected. You realize that perhaps this is what life means on a cosmic scale. Not breathing, not thinking, but participating, being part of the great circulation of matter and light. The dust of stars forms worlds. The dust of worlds returns to stars, and in between, comets like 3I, Atlas carry the memory of both. Between the stars and the silence, you find peace. You watch the red glow of Mars fade behind you, and the green comet drift ahead to lights briefly aligned in the dark, whispering through time their words made of dust. What the arbiters whispered back, that was the phrase used in the final summary from the mission teams. After months of silent observation, they compiled every signal, every spectrum, every faint anomaly into one sweeping report, a quiet testament to patience and wonder in laboratories across Earth. Teams replay the data streams from MAVEN, TGO, and MRO one last time. When they layer the signals together, infrared with ultraviolet, magnetometer with mass spectrometer, a pattern begins to emerge. It isn't random noise. It's a rhythm, a soft, repeating wave across every dataset that aligns perfectly with the passing of 3-1 Atlas. The findings are astonishing. A measurable increase in hydrogen ions in the upper atmosphere, correlated dips in ultraviolet transparency, and faint, periodic rises in water vapor density. Even more striking, all three orbiters recorded these fluctuations within the same 72-hour window, the precise moment when the comet crossed Mars. Orbital plane. One researcher compares it to listening to three different instruments playing the same melody. Each spacecraft, operating independently, detected the same tune, variations of the same cosmic chord. They're in harmony, she says softly, almost to herself. Mars and the comet. Still, the conclusions are cautious. The report's language is gentle, uncertain, poetic in places despite itself. The data suggest a transient interaction between the interplanetary medium and the Martian exosphere, possibly influenced by cometary material of interstellar origin. In plain terms, something passed between them, something real. Visualizations released to the public show Mars surrounded by faint halos of turquoise and silver, waves of light rippling through its upper air. It looks like breath. A dying planet inhaling the dust of a distant traveler, then exhaling in a shimmer of radiance. The image goes viral across social media, not because of sensationalism, but because it feels intimate. People see it and feel small, yet included in the vastness. In the control rooms, applause never comes. There's only the hum of machines and the soft satisfaction of knowing the universe has shared another of its quiet secrets. The orbiters themselves don't celebrate. They simply continue their orbits, patient and tireless, listening still and down on Earth. A few scientists linger after the shift ends, lights dimmed, staring at the composite images on screen, Mars, half-lit, 3i, Atlas, arcing beyond. One of them says what everyone feels, but no one writes. It's almost like the planet said, "Thank you." Maybe it did. Maybe gratitude is just resonance, the way matter echoes back when touched by something familiar. The orbiters, in their endless silence, have recorded that resonance, and through them, humanity has heard it. It's humbling to realize that across billions of kilometers, amid dust, radiation, and emptiness, communication can still exist, not through words, but through pattern, energy, and response. The orbiters have whispered back, and what they've said is simple. We are listening, and the universe is alive enough to answer. The quiet wonder, it's what remains when the numbers settle. When the debates slow, when the tail of 3i, ATLAS thins into invisibility, and Mars slips back into its familiar red hush. You float here one last time, above the limb of a planet that has learned to speak softly. Beneath you, the old volcanoes cast long blue shadows into dawn. The polar cap glints like a thought held too long. And far off, almost imagined, the comet fades into the outer dark, taking its emerald fire with it. What lingers is not certainty, but a feeling, the kind that science doesn't try to measure because it doesn't need to. Wonder is the permission to keep looking. It's what built the orbiters and tuned their instruments to hear whispers. It's what kept the teams awake on long nights, smoothing noise from signal, chasing meaning through the static. And it's why, even now, as the sky grows still, you feel the story hasn't ended, only grown quieter. You think about water and what it means to us, not just as chemical, but as memory. On Earth, water is loud, oceans that pound cliffs, rain that rattles rooftops, rivers that write their names into continents. On Mars, water is almost silence, a mist, a pulse, a spectral line that appears and vanishes like a breath on glass. And yet both forms are true. The roaring sea and the single molecule are the same story at different volumes. When 3i brushed its veil across the planet's thin air, it didn't give Mars back its oceans. It offered something else. The reminder that even in scarcity, the universe finds ways to speak. You remember the images, those false-color tapestries where light became paint. A turquoise ring at the edge of night. A faint band of increased vapor, rising and then dissolving into ultraviolet emptiness. The magnetometer's rhythm, the spectrometer's song. Individually, they were data. Together, they formed posture, the way a planet holds itself when touched. If there is poetry in physics, it is posture, the elegant response of matter to the presence of other matter. Mars' posture altered, then relaxed again. The comet, posture unchanged. Continuing on, it is tempting to anthropomorphize, to say, Mars remembered, or thanked, or sighed. Scientists caution against it, and they are right. Planets do not feel. Comets do not intend. But humans do, and humans build the instruments, and nothing in the universe forbids us from feeling while we measure. In truth, the emotion is not an error. It is an orientation. Awe points the antenna, steadies the calibration, keeps the doors of curiosity open when doubt is heavy and budgets are thin. Awe is rigor's companion, not its opposite. You think about distance, about how many kilometers lie between a lab monitor on Earth and a speck of ionized dust burning for a microsecond above Mars. The number is large, but the bridge is real. A chain of photons, antennas, relays, algorithms, eyes. Across that bridge moved not only measurements, but attention. Attention is what makes a universe into a universe. We notice, and in noticing we belong. Asterisk, the comet shrinks now to something the size of a thought. Its hyperbolic path will carry it away from the sun, past the cold law of Neptune's far wind, out toward the slow, silvered night that is interstellar space. There, its tail will coil back into sleep, its ices will stiffen, and time will resume its ancient, patient pace. If it survives long enough, 3I, ATLAS, will become another archive drifting through the dark, an unopened book between stars. Perhaps someday it will pass near another sun, stir another thin sky, write another brief sentence in light. Or perhaps not. The not knowing is part of the quiet wonder, too. And Mars turns. It will keep exhaling atoms into space, keep wearing its old riverbeds, like the jewelry of a life once lived. Seasons will come and go like dust on a windowsill. The orbiters will carry on until their power fades, then become tiny moons of a moonless world, listening no longer but still keeping company. Future craft will replace them, sharper, braver, more patient than before. We will ask better questions because we allowed ourselves to be surprised this time. You imagine someone in the future, landing near the edge of an ancient delta, kneeling in the ochre soil and finding within a rock the story of water written in mineral syllables. Maybe they will think of nights like this, when an interstellar traveler taught us how to hear again. Maybe they will bring a small vial of Earth's ocean and pour a single drop onto Martian dust as a promise. Not of conquest, but of continuity. A way of saying that across the void, across the years, across all the odds against it, water still recognizes water, the starfield brightens. In the thin dawn, the sun is a pale coin and the sky is already almost black. Between your gloved fingers, in imagination, if not in fact, you hold 2 grains of dust. One is Martian, iron red, old with the weight of vanished seas. The other is cometary, green-tinged, brittle with deep time. You press them together and nothing happens. Of course, nothing happens. And yet you feel, unmistakably, the closeness of their histories. The quiet wonder lies not in fireworks, but in adjacency, that everything we love about the cosmos is a set of nervouses made, meaningful by attention. Perhaps that's the lesson tonight. The universe rarely shouts. It leans in. It invites. It lays faint trails and waits to see if anyone will follow. We followed. We built ears out of mirrors and math and sent them to a planet that forgot how to make rain. We listened long enough to hear water find its way back into the sky, not as a flood, but as a whisper. So you let the image fade. Mars turning, the comet receding, the instruments humming. The quiet remains, not empty but full, like a well that reflects stars. Something happened here. We may argue about what to call it, but no one can deny the feeling that stays. The quiet wonder is the signature, the residue, the small, persistent warmth left in the mind after the numbers are done. Keep it. There will be other nights, other visitors, other worlds with thin breaths and old dreams. Bring the same attention. Bring the same patience. Bring the same willingness to say, I don't know, but I want to. That sentence is the first tool and the last prayer of science. You drift backward, letting the planet fill your view one final time. Its limb is a fine blue thread. Beyond it, a dim line where 3i Atlas once burned has already been reclaimed by dark. You exhale, and for a moment, your breath fogs your visor like a cloud on a world that forgot clouds. Then it clears, and the stars return, unbothered and beautiful. The universe does not owe us spectacle. It offers encounters. We learn to meet them in silence, and the silence teaches us to listen. Tonight, listening was enough. Let your shoulders soften. Feel the weight of your body settling, as if Martian gravity had lowered you gently onto warm sand. Above you, the sky is very dark and very kind. Somewhere far away, an interstellar comet continues into the quiet, and Mars keeps turning with the patience of stone. Nothing asks anything of you now. The instruments are still listening, and you don't have to. Imagine the edge of a polar cap glowing like a small thought at the back of your mind. Imagine a ribbon of turquoise light fading the way a melody fades after the last note, not gone, exactly, only resting where you can't hear it. Breathe in as if you were gathering starlight. Breathe out as if you were giving it back. If your mind drifts to questions, was it water? Was it coincidence? Let them pass like dust devils on a distant plain. Questions will be there in the morning. Tonight, it is enough to know that two travelers touched without touching, that light crossed light, that a thin breath rose and fell in time with something older than memory. Let the scale of it make you small in a friendly way. Small like a pebble warmed by sun. Small like a drop cradled by a leaf. In that smallness, you are held by orbit, by rhythm, by the steady kindness of repeating things, heartbeat, tidal pull. Day and night, the image dems, a red world outlined in blue, the last green whisper of a comet trailing into dark. Your breath is slow and even. The room is quiet. The universe hums just beyond the walls, content to keep its secrets a little longer. Close your eyes. Let wonder do the rest.